You walk into your bedroom at 10 o'clock at night and the air hits you like the inside of a parked car. 84 degrees, 85. The sheets feel damp before you even lie down. The ceiling fan just pushes the same hot air in a circle. And in the back of your mind, you already know the electric bill that is coming. Now picture this. 200 miles from your bedroom tonight, an Amish farmer in Lancaster County is sleeping in a room 20 degrees cooler than yours. Same outside temperature, no air conditioner, no fan, no electricity. About $5 of materials from any hardware store. My name is Eli, and the Amish in Lancaster County and Holmes County have been doing this for 200 years. Here is what was quietly pulled from the public record about 70 years ago. There is a way to drop your bedroom by a serious margin on a summer night. $5 at any hardware store, no air conditioner, no fan, no electricity. The Amish do it in farmhouses where the attic bakes in the afternoon sun. Upstairs attic, 140 degrees. The bedroom directly below it, a comfortable 65 by morning. Same roof, same night, same house. I am going to walk you through the whole method, and I am going to show you a Pennsylvania Farm Bulletin from 1946, written by a professor named Walter Schaff, that documented a draft strong enough to cool an entire upstairs floor for pennies a night. This works in a house you already own. You do not need to rebuild anything. The first time I tried it in my own bedroom in late July, I woke up at 5 in the morning and reached for the blanket I had thrown off the bed. $5, real degrees, zero electricity. That is the whole method. Now let me tell you why your bedroom is cooking you alive at night, because the reason is not the reason you think. It is not the sun. The sun is not stronger than it was 50 years ago. It is not the climate. The summers are not radically hotter than the ones your grandparents lived through with no air conditioning at all. The reason is something that was done to your house on purpose, starting around 1978. Let me explain, because once you understand it, you will never look at your bedroom the same way. A wood frame house has a particular behavior at night. The walls, the floor joists, the roof deck, every single piece of lumber inside that building spends the whole day soaking up heat from the sun, hour after hour, like a stone in a fire. By late afternoon, that wood is loaded with stored heat. Then the sun goes down, and in most of this country, the outside air drops 15, 20, even 25 degrees between 9 at night and 4 in the morning. And all that lumber wants to release the heat it stored. It wants to dump it back out into the cool night air, because that is what heat does. Heat moves from hot to cold, always, every time, without exception. It is one of the most reliable rules in all of physics. So on a summer night, the wood in your walls is trying its best to hand its heat back to the cool night outside. That is the natural cycle. That is how a house was supposed to breathe. But here is the thing. Your house no longer lets it happen. Sometime around 1978, when residential energy codes started tightening up, we began sealing houses up like Tupperware containers. Vapor barriers stapled to the inside of the walls, plastic sheeting under the drywall, spray foam packed into every joint and every gap, sealed soffits, sealed gable vents, weather stripping on everything that opens. And we were told this would save energy, and I want to be fair, because in the dead of winter, in a cold climate, it genuinely does save energy. It keeps the furnace heat inside where you want it. But in summer, what all that sealing actually does is trap the heat your lumber soaked up all day inside the walls of your house all night long. The heat has nowhere to go. The path the old houses used to let the heat escape has been caulked and foamed and sealed shut. So that stored heat just radiates inward, into your rooms, all night, while the cool night air sits right outside the wall, unable to get in and do its job. That is why your bedroom reads 84 at 10 at night when it is 72 degrees outside. Read that again, because it is the whole secret. It is cooler outside than inside. The heat is not coming in from outdoors. It is leaking out of the wood of your own house, from the inside, and your sealed up walls will not let it escape to the cool night where it wants to go. You are not being heated by the summer. You are sleeping inside a slow radiator made of 2x4s, and somebody sealed the vents. The Amish never sealed their houses like that. They never had to, because they never ran a furnace or an air conditioner that they were trying to trap. And so they kept something the rest of us were quietly allowed to forget, which is a working relationship with the night air. There was an energy study at Penn State some years back that compared a set of Amish farmhouses in Lancaster County to similarly sized ordinary homes in the same climate. The Amish homes ran cooler in summer by a meaningful margin, with no mechanical cooling at all. Not because they had better insulation or better windows. They did not. They simply had a different relationship with the night, and the method they use has 3 parts. I am going to give you all 3, because if you do only one, you get a small drop. Do all 3 together, and you get the full effect. The first part costs nothing. The second costs about $1. The third costs about $4. $5 total, and you can have all 3 set up before you go to bed tonight. The first part is what an Amish carpenter named Eli Miller in Mount Hope, Ohio calls the night draw. The night draw is the trick of pulling the coolest air you have available, usually from a basement, a cellar, a crawl space, or the shaded north foundation wall, and letting it rise through the house to push the hot air out of your bedroom. And here is the key, the part most people get backwards. You do not push the cold air up. You do not need a fan blowing cold air into the room. You let the hot air out the top, and the cold air follows on its own, pulled in behind it. That is the stack effect. It is the exact same physics that makes a chimney draw smoke up and out instead of into your living room. Hot air rises, and when it rises and leaves through an opening up high, cool air gets pulled in down low to replace it, automatically, with no machine and no electricity. This is happening in your house right now tonight, whether you help it or not. The only question is whether you give the air a path to actually move. In a sealed modern house, there is no path. The basement door is shut, the attic hatch is sealed, the vents are blocked or screened over, so the air cannot move, the stack effect has nowhere to pull, and the heat just sits there in a dome on top of you while you try to sleep. To set up the night draw tonight, you do 3 simple things, and all 3 are free. You open the door at the bottom of your basement stairs, or the hatch to your crawl space if that is what you have. You open one window in the bedroom you want to cool, on the side of the house that gets the least afternoon sun, which is usually the north or the east side, and you open one window or vent as high in the house as you can reach, the highest upstairs window, the top of the stairwell, or the attic hatch propped open with a brick. That is the whole setup. No fan, no power. The difference in temperature between the cool basement at the bottom and the hot attic at the top creates a difference in air pressure, and that pressure quietly, steadily pulls cool air up out of the ground, through your bedroom, and out the top of the house all night long. The first night I did this in my own house, the room started at 82 when I went to bed, and when I woke at 4 in the morning, the thermometer by my pillow read 16 degrees lower, with nothing but 3 open doors and 2 open windows. But the night draw by itself is not the whole thing. To pull the air down further, and to make this work even on a warm, sticky night, you need the second piece, and this is where the Amish method becomes different from anything you have read in a homesteading magazine. The second piece is a length of plain, untreated cotton muslin, 4 yards of it. At any fabric store, untreated cotton muslin runs about $1 a yard, so 4 yards is about $4. You want the cheap, unbleached, undyed kind, the stuff that looks slightly tan and feels a little rough between your fingers. That roughness is the open weave you need. Tightly woven cotton will not work. Polyester will not work at all. It has to be the loose, open muslin that lets air pass through while it holds moisture in the fiber. You soak the 4 yards in cold tap water, wring it out so it is damp but not dripping, and you hang it across the inside of that bedroom window you open for the night draw, the one on the cool, shaded side. Drape it over the curtain rod, pin it to the top of the frame with 2 push pins, clip it to a string with clothespins. The how does not matter at all. What matters is that the incoming night air has to pass through that damp cotton on its way into the room. When drier outside air passes through wet cloth, it picks up water vapor, and to pick up that water vapor, it has to give up some of its own energy, and the energy it gives up comes out as temperature. That is evaporative cooling. It is the same exact thing that cools your skin when you sweat and a breeze passes over you, the same thing that makes you shiver getting out of a pool on a warm day. The air coming through that damp muslin can be a good deal cooler than the air on the outside of the cloth. Now, I want to be completely honest with you about this. because honesty is the whole point of this channel, and there are 100 videos online that will lie to you about it. Evaporative cooling works best when the air is dry. The drier the air, the more water it can soak up out of the cloth, and the bigger the temperature drop. In a dry climate, the drop across that wet muslin is dramatic. You will not believe it the first time. But in a humid climate, in Pennsylvania or Ohio, in a sticky, heavy August, the air is already half full of water, so it cannot soak up as much, and the drop is smaller, just a few degrees. I am not going to stand here and promise you 20 degrees off a wet cloth in a swamp, because it is not true, and the moment somebody promises you something physics will not deliver, you should stop trusting them. What I will tell you is the truth. In dry air, the cloth does most of the work. In humid air, the night draw does most of the work, and the cloth adds a few degrees on top. Either way, stacked together, you feel it, and your thermometer shows it. Now here is the part of the story I want you to hear, because it explains why your grandfather knew this and you do not. Back in 1946, a professor named Walter Schaff at Penn State published a farm bulletin titled Natural Cooling Methods for the Pennsylvania Farmhouse. This was real agricultural research from a real land-grant university, in an era when the whole purpose of that research was simply to help farm families live better for less money. On a hot July day, Schaff measured a steady draft moving through a Lancaster County farmhouse upstairs, with no fans and no powered ventilation of any kind, just the night draw and an open path top to bottom. That draft cooled the entire upstairs floor for the cost of pennies a night. He wrote it all down, the measurements, the method, the cost, and that bulletin went out, free of charge, to county extension offices all across Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and parts of New York, from the late 1940s into the early 50s. For a few years, it was just part of the standard advice a farmer got from the county agent, and then it quietly faded out of the recommended literature, not banned, not seized off a shelf. And I want to be fair and careful with you here, because I cannot prove that anyone sat in a room and gave an order to bury it, and I am not going to pretend I can. What I can tell you is what was happening all around it in those exact years. Rural electrification was reaching the last farms that had been holding out. The companies that manufactured window air conditioners were pouring marketing money into those same farm regions, and the same county extension offices that had once handed out Schaff's cooling bulletin were now, by the late 50s, handing out glossy brochures on how to choose the right size window unit for your bedroom. The free method did not stop working. Physics did not change. It just stopped being the thing anyone with money had a reason to promote, because nobody on earth makes $1 telling you to open your basement door and hang a wet cloth in the window. So it slipped out of the pamphlets and out of the conversation, and the only people who kept doing it were the ones who never bought the machine in the first place. The Amish, a handful of Mennonite families, some old German farm families out in the Pennsylvania Dutch country. They kept the method alive, quietly, in their own bedrooms, while the rest of the country was sold a box in the window that costs a few $100s every summer to run. So before I give you the third piece and the adjustments for a modern house, here is where everything I have pulled out of these communities and these old bulletins lives in one place. Every method, every measurement, every technique from this channel is gathered together in the description below in something called the Amish Home System. Now, stay right here, because the third piece is the one almost nobody talks about, and it is the part that carries the cool of the night into the heat of the day. Now, before the third piece, let me answer the questions people send me every summer, because if I do not, you will get this wrong and give up on it. The first question is always about the salt, because the third piece uses salt, and I will get to exactly how in a moment. People ask if table salt works, if sea salt works, if the fancy pink Himalayan salt their sister-in-law gave them for Christmas works. The honest answer, the one that comes out of the actual chemistry and not out of marketing, is that you want the cheapest, coarsest, least processed rock salt you can find, the kind sold in big bags for water softeners or for melting ice on the driveway in February, a few dollars for a bag that lasts all summer. That salt is mostly plain sodium chloride with the trace minerals still left in it, and it pulls moisture out of the air well, which is exactly the job. Refined table salt has had those minerals stripped out, and then, worse, it has had anti-caking agents added to it on purpose, specifically to stop it from absorbing moisture from the air, because nobody wants clumpy table salt. But absorbing moisture from the air is the entire point of what you are trying to do here. So anti-caking table salt is like putting a raincoat on a sponge. It fights the exact thing you need. The second question is about the cloth. People ask if a polyester blend works, if their 1,000 thread count luxury sheets work. Polyester does not work. Polyester is a plastic, and water just beads on the surface and flashes off in an hour, giving you nothing through the night. You want cotton, and ideally an old, thin, low thread count cotton sheet that has been washed 100 times and has lost its tightness and its sizing, because the looser and thinner the weave, the better it soaks the brine all the way through, and the slower it releases the water over the long hours of the night. A flour sack towel works beautifully. Your grandmother's worn old percale that you have been meaning to throw out for 15 years works beautifully. New tight expensive cotton is actually worse than old soft cheap cotton for this. The third question comes from people in apartments who write to me and say they rent and cannot put a hook in the ceiling, and the answer is that you do not need one. Run a clothesline between two pieces of furniture. Drape it over the back of a tall chair pulled up to the head of the bed. Use a spring tension rod, the kind for a shower curtain. $8 at any hardware store, wedged between two walls, no holes, comes down in 30 seconds when you move out. The Amish were never married to ceiling hooks. They were married to the principle, which is that the cloth has to hang freely in open air above you, with room for the air to move past both sides of it, because all the cooling happens at the wet surface where the water is leaving and carrying the heat away with it. Pin it flat to the wall and you have ruined it. Let it lie on the mattress and you have ruined it. It has to hang free. Now let me be straight with you about the two big objections, because you should be skeptical and test this yourself. The first objection is humidity, and it is a fair one. People say evaporative cooling does not work in a humid climate, and for a plain, wet sheet soaked in tap water in very humid air, that is largely true. The evaporation slows right down. The salt changes that somewhat, because a salt brine pulls water vapor out of the air more aggressively than plain water does, which keeps the cloth working when a plain wet cloth would just sit there soggy. But I am not going to oversell it. In genuinely saturated swamp-like air, the cooling from any evaporative method is modest, and the night draw is doing most of the real work. The drier your climate, the more the cloth gives you. The more humid your climate, the more you lean on the open path and the cool basement air. The second objection is mold. Hanging a damp cloth in a bedroom every night, people worry about mildew on the walls and the mattress. Two things keep that from being a problem. One, the salt brine is naturally resistant to mold and bacteria, so the cloth itself does not turn. Two, you wring it out until it is damp and heavy but not dripping, never dripping, and for the first 20 minutes, you hang it over a folded towel on the floor to catch any runoff. Damp, not wet. If you can squeeze water out of it with your hand, it is too wet. Now, if you are sitting in a house built in 1968 or 74 or 82 and thinking, this only applies to 200-year-old stone farmhouses, stay with me, because this next part is specifically for you. The ranch, the split level, the Cape Cod, the house you already own and are not about to rebuild. The night draw and the muslin work in any wood frame house, but a house built after 1960 needs 3 specific adjustments, and here they are exactly. First, find your coldest air source. If your basement is finished, or you do not have one, walk around the house at 9 at night with your hand held low. The coldest spot is usually the shaded north side of the foundation, where the ground stays in the low 60s even in August. If there is a crawl space door or a basement window on that side, open it. No basement, no crawl space, then a screened porch on the shaded side, or a garage with a north-facing door. Find the coolest body of air touching your house and open the path to it. Second, your modern attic has vents designed to ventilate the attic, not your living space. So when hot air rises in the house, it hits the bedroom ceiling and stops. To fix that without cutting into anything, open the attic access hatch, the pull-down stairs, or the scuttle hole in the hallway ceiling, and prop it about 3 inches with a wood block. 3 inches is the sweet spot. More and the cool air races past your room before it does its work. Less and the flow chokes. Third, if you have central air ductwork, turn the central air off and those ducts become a passive cool air highway. Open every supply register, open every return, leave the bedroom door open a few inches, and the night draw pulls cool basement air through the whole duct system on its way up. I tried this in a 1972 split level in Ohio that belonged to a friend named Harold, who had been running his central air every single night all summer for years and dreading the bill every month. We set up the night draw on a Tuesday in August. We found the cool air on the shaded north side, propped the attic hatch 3 inches, opened the registers, cracked the bedroom door. His bedroom went from the low 80s at 10 at night down into the 60s by morning, with the air conditioner switched completely off. He was so surprised he stood in the doorway with the thermometer in his hand. He kept the air conditioner off for the rest of that month and watched his electric bill fall back to a fraction of what he had been paying all those summers. A split level from the 70s. No stone walls, no cupola, no 200-year-old farmhouse, just an ordinary house, the kind most of you live in, with the path open back up. The muslin works in a vinyl window exactly the same way. Just take the screen out and hang the damp cloth in the screen's place, because the screen frame is the perfect support for it, and the damp weave keeps most of the insects out on its own anyway. The Amish do not have screens in most of their bedroom windows because they worked out 100 years ago that the muslin does both jobs at once, the cooling and the bugs. Now the third piece, the one that carries the cool into the day, I found it as a single pencil note in the margin of an old copy of that Schaff bulletin in the Penn State Archive. After I had been looking for nearly a year, the note read, "Salt sheet, head of bed, sundown to sunrise." That was all it said, and I had no idea what it meant. It took me 3 tries with 3 different Amish women in Holmes County before one of them finally explained it to me plainly, because it is the kind of thing they grew up with and assume everyone knows. Here is what you do, and it costs about $1. You take a single old cotton bed sheet, and the thinner and more worn it is, the better it works, so use the oldest one you have. You dissolve about 1 cup of plain rock salt, the cheap, coarse kind, into a gallon of warm water, and you stir it until the salt is fully dissolved and the water runs clear. You soak the whole sheet in that salt water until it is saturated, then you wring it out until it is damp and heavy but not dripping, and you hang it on a wooden rack or a line strung about 2 feet above the head of the bed at sundown the evening before you want it. Here is the mechanism, and it is genuinely clever. Through the cool of the night, the salt soaked into that cloth pulls moisture out of the rising night humidity, so instead of drying out, the sheet actually stays damp on its own all night without you ever re-wetting it. Then, in the morning, when the sun comes up and the room slowly begins to warm, that moisture evaporates back out of the cloth, gradually over hours, and as it evaporates, it pulls a little heat out of the pocket of air right above your bed. The effect is gentle and continuous. It does not blast you with cold the way a machine does, and it will not freeze you. What it does is keep that pocket of air over your pillow from climbing as fast as the rest of the house climbs through the morning, so you get a few extra hours of cool before the day fully takes over. You do not have to wash the sheet between nights, because the salt keeps it from turning, and at the end of the summer you rinse it out in plain water, hang it to dry, and fold it away until next June. Now, I have to stop and tell you something important, and I mean it. These 3 techniques are real, and on an ordinary hot summer night they make a bedroom genuinely more bearable for very little money. But heat is not just uncomfortable. In a real heat wave, heat is dangerous, and I am not going to pretend a wet sheet replaces good sense. If you are elderly, if you have heart or breathing problems, if there is a baby or a frail older person in the house, or if the heat is the kind that does not break at night, do not rely on these tricks alone. That is when you go to air conditioning, a cooling center, a relative's place, wherever the real cool air is. Signs like a pounding headache, dizziness, confusion, a racing heart, or a person who has stopped sweating in the heat are a medical emergency, and the answer to those is cool the person down fast and call for help, not a salt sheet. Use these methods to sleep better on a normal warm night, and use real cooling and real help when the heat turns serious. The Amish themselves moved to cellars and spring houses in the worst of it. They never pretended the night draw could beat everything. So that is the whole system. The night draw, which costs nothing, the damp muslin in the window, about $4, the salt sheet over the bed, about $1, $5 of materials, and after that it runs every night of the summer for free. No electric bill, no filters, no compressor to break, no refrigerant to leak, no contractor to call. And the reason almost nobody knows it is simple, and it is not a wild conspiracy. Nobody ever made $1 on a pencil note in the margin of a 1946 bulletin, and nobody makes $1 today telling you to open your basement door and hang a wet cloth. The knowledge stayed alive in the hands of the families who never bought the machine in the first place, and now it is in your hands too. If you are the kind of person who believes that simple, real knowledge gets quietly pushed aside when there is no money in it for anyone but you, then you already know what to do next. Try it this weekend. Open the path through your house. Hang the damp muslin. Soak one old sheet in 1 cup of rock salt and a gallon of water and hang it over the head of your bed at sundown. Then come back to the comments and tell me one real number, the temperature your bedroom thermometer read at 5 in the morning and what state you live in, because I am keeping track of how this performs across the country in dry air and in humid air, and your number helps the next person know what to expect where they live. If this is the kind of recovered knowledge you came here for, subscribe and stay with us, because there is a whole community here taking back the plain, cheap, practical things our grandparents knew and our generation almost let go. Next week, I am walking you through the old way to keep a refrigerator cold through a multi-day power outage using nothing but 2 clay flower pots and a particular kind of sand out of a USDA pamphlet almost nobody has read since the war. Same family of knowledge, same $5 logic. Until then, open the path, hang the cloth, and sleep cool. You are not joining a channel, you are joining a quiet movement of people who decided to take back what was theirs all along. I will see you in the next one.